So we're doing the first remote Lone Wolves podcast. Why is that?
Because we're too damn busy.
Yeah.
It's hard because you live in the country.
It's been a few months.
You live in the country.
I don't live in the country.
Okay.
It's been hard to get together and schedule, and shit's coming up, and you've been really busy with and the Lone Wolf stuff and travel and all that. So
the good news is,
and you know what? We can actually
yeah.
And what?
I was just going to say the good news is all the podcasts I watch, Amy Poehler's Good Hang, winning awards. She doesn't like this when she can't have people come in. So it's totally doable.
And we can have guests a lot more easily.
Yes.
This way. Does Kara Swisher and what's his name, do they
Scott
do
Galloway?
theirs remote?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
My
never
Kara
seen the
Swisher
video.
expert, my wife is not here, so I can't scream in the other room. I'll find out.
Yeah, because your wife's friends with Kara Swisher.
Mm-hmm.
She, very, very graciously offered to tell Kara Swisher about my book.
It's actually
that is now
on its way to Kara Swisher.
In person. Yeah, it's technically out. It's technically you can get it, but the formal release date's in late March. So here it is.
We'll be doing a little festivities around it. If you want to go to lonewolvesclub.co at some point and check it out, we'll put it on the website as well.
Yeah, we're gonna have a party.
We're like both published authors. Like we're authors. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, no, but you've done what?
2.
Like 3 books?
Just
2?
Just 2. With Simon & Schuster.
Wait, does that include the coffee table book?
Yeah, that's 2. That includes it. Yeah. I've only done 2 books.
Okay, yeah. Well, that's
like loser.
1 more than me and 2 more than most people.
If we could do it, anyone can do it.
Yeah, I believe in you. So
I think
today, since it's been a while, we wanted to do a top of the year one, and it's March, but I think one of the interesting things that I keep seeing is the Luminate just had a big report on the music industry a couple weeks ago, and there's always data coming out of media and other research firms, academia, and I think we're going to go over some interesting numbers in music today. And I'm bad at math, but I can read numbers, which was the name of a Substack I posted about this. So I think one of the things really interesting to start with is 5.1 trillion. That is the number of on-demand audio streams the world had in 2025.
That's kind of wild to think about. But at the same time, don't you think it also, when you think about the amount of catalog that's out there and just the music in general, it actually doesn't seem so crazy when you actually really think about how vast that is.
Well, it's just the sheer volume. I mean, streaming, I'm going to put this graphic in when I edit the podcast, but I made a really fancy data visualization for the grad program that I just finished. I had like a data visualization class, and it was really interesting. And I made this graph of Spotify's growth in the US.
Yes.
It was slow. It took I forget someone who told me this the other day. I think it took 3 years to get to 3 million subscribers for Spotify from 2011 to 2014 or something. And then it just, in 2016, we had the first 1 billion streamed song, which was One Dance, Drake. And then from there, it's been a pretty steady but pretty meteoric growth of streaming. And we talk about Spotify like it's a proxy for streaming. It's the biggest, but Spotify's like a third of streaming, but like Apple Music Amazon Music, YouTube Music are all about 10% market share.
Yeah.
There's a lot of DSPs and there's a lot of streaming now.
Yeah. And I think this graph, and I'm looking at it now because I'm looking at your Substack, subscribe if you can, that this totally makes sense to me though. Like the early adoption, I mean, it's actually like significant to see growth over the first 3 years after going from physical to digital downloads to streaming. I remember, like, RDO came on the scene early, like, these other smaller DSPs were kind of, like, testing the waters and doing free trials, and then Spotify was really the one that got it right, like, from the tech perspective too, and this growth makes sense, and the plateau makes sense too. It's like you tap out of your highest paying. Basically, you're like the US, Europe, these regions that you can have tiers that are at the highest, and you go into international regions where you have to lower that price, so the cost per consumer is lower, and you have to figure out other ways to do this to create revenue. So this totally makes sense, the growth perspective of this, but the volume is insane, and you're right, we do use Spotify as a proxy because it has the biggest market share.
Yeah. We also know the most about it because it's
Yeah.
the only independent DSP.
Exactly, exactly.
So the Amazon and Apple, who knows, wrapped up in all the other corporate stuff they do.
Right.
So, but that's really interesting. So, of the 5.1 trillion on-demand streams last year, Luminate now is measuring 253 million ISRCs. So
Wow.
they are now. This was about as of the end, I believe, as of February or late January. They are now measuring 253 million songs that are on DSPs. I know Sound Exchange's number is quite a bit lower than that, but they don't have the entirety of the catalog.
Yep.
And there's undoubtedly some duplicates. I talked to someone at Spotify who kind of manages their catalog, and he said they think there's about 250 million individual ISRCs too, but there's a lot that are wrong, fraud, songs that came out in the physical era that were on different labels and different territories.
Yeah.
Duplicated.
Yeah.
So it's probably not quite 250 million, but there's a lot.
But you think,
And
what is that,
the
like,
next number?
2 or 5% of those tracks could technically be in that category?
Yeah, I think probably. I don't think it's 10%, but I think maybe 5%.
Yeah.
They've done a lot to clean up
Yeah.
that stuff. And of course, machine learning helps with that now. But
Yeah.
but I think there's a lot. And so the other number is 88%, and that number means that 88% of those 253 million songs did not reach Spotify's 1,000 streams a year threshold.
Wild. That is wild.
The royalty pool is going to only 12% of the songs on the master side. There's a back of the envelope phrase of, oh, Spotify doesn't pay if it streams under 1,000 streams a year. They actually do on the publishing side. That's statutory. That's a law.
Right, but not on the master.
Spotify does pay everything they pay in publishing. They have to pay from stream one, but on the master, they need to reach 1,000 stream threshold. And 88% of those 253 million songs do not reach 1,000 streams a year.
That is the most alarming number to me. Like, truly, when you think about, like, the success rate of music out, like, that's really alarming. And we're talking about 1,000 streams over the course of a year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it says a lot about the frictionless nature of recording and releasing music these days.
Yeah. Anyone can do it.
It's just too easy.
Yep.
Yeah. It's too easy. So
also, you can blame the algorithm, you can blame all of the discovery platforms for not putting your music up front, but if you listen, it's a mix of the frictionless tools you have now to be able to create the music, the distribution platforms that basically have anybody could do it, whether it's like DIY artists doing rev shares or paying minimal cost per month to get their music up there. It's also like, if you don't have a proper marketing plan, if you don't have ways to market your music, like, it could be the best thing no one's ever heard. Like, and that could be the case, you know?
Well, artists ask me, like, what can you do? Like, my song's great and I'm starting out, and I don't have an answer for them. I'm like, there's 150,000 songs coming out a day. Like, unless you have $1 billion to blanket media, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, I do know what to tell you. The work you're doing with Even is the answer. And there are, obviously there's tactics to use, but it's a sea of chaos and a lot of volume. And I don't know how you stand out without being extraordinary.
Being really lucky. Right time, right place. There's a little bit of that, and marketing, and that's the thing that's going to get people to, and catering to your, like you said, with Even, like, building your fan base. Like, you put the music out there, you target your own fans, and you start to build that community, because it is too loud and too crowded otherwise.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what numbers you got for me? What's interesting? What'd you find?
In your Substack, 39% comes up,
And what does
which
that
is
refer to,
of
Lauren?
all DSP uploads are fully Gen AI. That's alarming.
Yes, and it's probably higher now.
Right.
That was according to Deezer's research in late January, and now it's 6 weeks later, and it was 20% last winter last fall. So
Oh, it rose almost
39.
Wow.
So it's almost doubled. So yeah, we're probably at a point very soon where more than half of the uploads to DSPs are fully generative AI, and that would be Suno, the old Udio, 11 Labs.
Yep.
Beautiful producer AI. I'm not sure what is going to happen with them as they were just acquired by Google, but yeah.
So I have a question about this. I want to talk through because I think a lot of people are like, they see these headlines of like the majors are suing Suno and Udio, and then like they're settling, and then there's like deals with Clay, which is a walled garden atmosphere where they're just with, by the way, no product, like you've told me, there nothing is launched, that they're trying to figure out ways to get ahead of this sort of like illegal use of training models. So okay, somebody uses like a text prompt to say like, can you create a track for me that has the feeling of Taylor Swift with Jay-Z's vocals with whatever, like they figure out what they want. That output comes out. They then put that on DSPs. What is the consequences? Who gets the royalty payments? How is that being managed? Is it being managed because it's the output? With some of these like insular programs where you're using it and you're sharing with friends or whatever it is, when you start to use it for commercial use, that feels like the real danger.
You would think, right?
Teach me.
So to answer your question, technically, you're not supposed to be able to do that with a named artist. That's a name and likeness right that these services don't have. And I do know that sometimes there's ways to get around it, or you can be very descriptive about something and it's obvious. And when in the lawsuit with Suno, they prompted an ABBA song by describing a quartet from Sweden that made 70s dance pop hits and has a Broadway, like you can signal who that is.
Mamma Mia.
And so, but technically you're not allowed to use name and likeness rights on the generative AI music platforms. You can in large language models. So if you were to say, make me the lyrics that are in the style of Taylor Swift, with large language models do that. It's a little bit of more of a gray area, but it's sort of generative AI. You're not supposed to be able to go to Suno and reference a real artist.
Okay.
If you somehow do, or you make me the first, like an R&B jam from, and it's very clearly something that's similar to a real artist. There's no guideline or law or content policy or terms of service violation of uploading it to Spotify. That's totally legit. It's totally legal. It's fine. Whether it's ethical or it's something we want to encourage is another story, and you can earn money on it. You can earn masters. You're not supposed to claim publishing. The copyright offices around the world are pretty aligned on this. You can't claim publishing on generative AI, just like I can make a book on ChatGPT and then sell it on Amazon, but I can't get copyright protection on it. Same thing with music. So the output is owned by the person who made it, and it's in Suno's commercial terms of service. If you pay for that tier, then you own it, and you own the rights to exploit it on the master side. So, but here's another number for you.
Yep.
We have 40% of all music being uploaded to streaming is now fully generative AI. And there's a distinction there. It's like use no human editing or in the loop at all. It's text prompts to output.
Got it.
There was, as of last fall, it was about 0.5% of the royalty pool.
Yeah, exactly.
Was being paid. And now it's actually about 3%. It's tripled, or by a factor of 6, it's growing. It's like about 3% of all the royalty pool in the master side does go to generative AI. It's virtually all fraud.
Correct.
Nobody is listening to this shit.
I completely agree with you. I just think, like all tech, as it gets more advanced and better, are we going to eventually have a problem? Because I know on the front end, like you said, so Suno is doing deals with the majors to license properly so that they're not just training their models off of scrape shit from the internet. So that is upfront, and that's great. And they'll probably maybe do a rev share on their subscriptions, whatever the deal is. The output part of it is like what feels to me like right now you can identify that it's a very small part of the royalty pool. It's shit. It's manipulated. But what if it does get really good? Like to me,
It's so good.
K-pop Demon Hunter could have absolutely been created by AI. It's formulaic. It's, but what it had with it, all of those tracks like Golden, all that, it had a franchise around it with a Netflix show and like all
Right.
these other things that supported it, not a standalone AI artist.
That's the crux. This shit is so good. Songs from Suno sound so good. And people love the audio model, the old audio model, probably a little better, but these songs are so good. They sound so great. That is not what fans want. They don't care about that.
They don't care, right?
They don't.
Good.
Well, you worked at Sony when you guys were trying to, I say you guys, like I wasn't also there,
like,
but
fuck.
when, and my sleepy little label, we weren't playing around with an emerging tech, but you were there when like the avatar artist phase, like, did that work?
No.
Did anybody care about, besides like a bunch of us following Lil Michaela on Instagram as a novelty, did anybody care about avatar artists? Like there's been no examples, none besides Alvin and the Chipmunks.
If you can reference it too,
avatar
right?
Made up artist became a beloved artist. It doesn't.
No, and it was a
there's
franchise.
no examples.
It's a franchise too. It's like
right, and true to what you said about Netflix, that was a media property that extended far beyond just music. It was a TV show or whatever.
Right, movies. There has to be like this like supplemental content around it. Like I had a call yesterday with somebody who was he was like pushing back a little bit on what I was saying, which was basically like this music is not good enough or it's not being streamed enough to make a difference and it's in a different royalty pool. And he was like, he's like, I don't know if you're too young to remember this. I'm not, but he's like, Max Headroom from MTV was technically like sort of like an AI type entity. And I said, yes, but the fact that you can only mention him and these other cultural media companies weren't replicating that and it wasn't successful, like it was a one-off. It made sense for exactly MTV because it had all of this content around it. Exactly. And it was supported by a media outlet that was very culturally in tap and in tune. And it wasn't replicated. So no, I mean, that's what I'm feeling now too. It's like you could potentially, like Little Michaela, you just mentioned that was the only thing that really worked within
that's the only one I can imagine.
Right. And if you can't name 20, then it's not going to be replicated.
Yeah. It's not a strategy. It's not something that Bryce Williams can pursue.
And there's not longevity to it either.
And there's certainly a lot of AI artist companies propping up trying to make this IP with AI. Hollywood Media, there's another company that I was talking to that's doing it, and we'll see if some of these get scaled, but I don't think they're going to really break. But by the way, speaking of Max Headroom, I went down this like YouTube rabbit hole, like actually really recently, like within a couple weeks ago, and there was like this thing in Chicago in the 80s where someone in a Max Headroom costume like broke into the local the TV networks and did this weird skit and Chicago TV, and then it went away and like no one ever figured out who it was or what happened. And it's like this weird pop culture moment where in Chicago for 5 minutes one night, the only thing you could see on TV was this guy in a weird Max Headroom
that is
costume.
So like, weird. And that should probably happen so much more, but like we didn't have video cameras to take or like our phones to record it. So like that's so funny.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I just, this is the stuff. I just did this podcast recently, the Jay Gilbert's Your Morning Coffee podcast. A really great podcast he does and he had Kristen Robinson from Billboard on and Danny from Caldecott Music Group Band Lab and some other people that are working in AI. And then I was on his, and between the five of us, we covered a lot. And the number one overarching thing is that everyone's so existentially freaked out by this generative AI music, and like nobody fucking wants it.
I know.
And no one's listening to it, and it's just not threatening. In fact, I think one of the reasons why the generative AI companies are going to win the lawsuits is because it's not impacting the commercial market of music yet.
Yeah.
It's not. Sony had a 10% quarter-over-quarter growth they just announced last week.
Of course.
They're now a $3 billion group. And their growth is increasing with this generative AI being in the market. And I just feel like I'm taking crazy pills
Well,
because
if their
this
licensing
is
deals are
so
more
obvious.
lucrative than the actual content that's being put out, then they're winning.
Yeah. Yeah. I was told by someone who was licensed a bunch of major label IP for their AI startup that the Suno deal was 30 million annually to labels majors. So I think that feels about right. It's quite low. I mean, the Spotify was obviously, it's a different situation, and Spotify was in the hundreds of millions. But for a burgeoning tech company working with music IP in a way that they are working with it, where it's gray area, whether it's fair use or not, I don't know if this number's right, but 30 million annually seems about right. It's a great extra a bonus to the labels. It's not
right. It's not like incremental,
going to
right?
change.
It's not going to make or break.
Yeah, I mean, Sony being the middle of the three majors now is a 3 billion annual revenue. So what's there? Is that 1%? Wait, is that 10%?
3 billion?
Or is that 1%? 3 million is 30 million is
10%.
I'm bad at math, but I can read numbers. Whatever 30 million is in relation to 3 billion, is that 1%?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Yes.
300
okay.
million
So
would be
1%.
10% of
1%,
30
yeah,
billion, right?
Yeah. So it's 1%. Great. Like a 1%, like you go up 1%, that's worth mentioning in the earnings call. Like that's earnings call. That's great. But it's not necessarily, so I think that feels right.
So I think UMG has an announcement or an earnings release today. Something's happening in that space.
Okay.
Which I'll look out for. But it's been really interesting to see them kind of rise up and, be the top, like fully. It was always like this teetering between Sony and Universal, and then Warner was always underneath it. But Universal's really taken a lead, and they've been more aggressive in the press about the deals they're doing. They're more innovative, which is a word that gets thrown around that makes me so angry because like, no one's really being innovative, but they're being a little bit more, like they're pivoting a little bit.
I'm a professor of innovation.
I know, and I can say you're
Berkeley.
innovative because I've been to your classes. The way you teach is like what's really happening. The music industry doesn't look like it did. It looks like there's so much more tech involved in music than there was before that the industries are.
Yeah, you can't separate tech and music.
Yeah, and
anymore.
the acquisitions and the partnerships that are happening are with infrastructures or with tech platforms, and it just doesn't look like it did. And I think that's why there was like this massive layoffs across the board because they're like, what positions do we need? Like, who do we need to be hiring? Nobody is developing artists. No one's developing artists. Like, how are we supposed? Who is doing this?
No.
Label services at distribution companies? I don't know. Maybe. Who's developing artists?
Well, interesting that you say that because let's talk about some numbers in the indie sector for a second. I find it interesting of this figure, 2 billion. That is the amount DistroKid is rumored to be asking for in a sale. And led by Rain Group, which is if you should know who Rain Group is if you work in music. They are silently bankrolling a lot of music from Firebird to Live Nation. And the sale is going to be led by them and then Goldman Sachs. So DistroKid is the biggest independent long tail distributor, whatever you want to call it. They have about 30 to 40% of the world's music through them is being distributed. Obviously, it's that long tail. Most of it's that 88% that isn't getting paid on Spotify. I'm really confused about how they're worth 2 billion. Now, of course, they have market share and they have scale. But they don't own any rights, and their profit margins are really slim. And their tech stack, I think, is like fine, but a little legacy. Sure, the data is valuable, but like, I don't know. What are you buying for 2 billion? Like, I honestly don't know.
You're buying this.
Like, I trust that that's an accurate number. I think Goldman Sachs and Ring Group know what they're doing, and I think they usually don't come out and do an asking price that's crazy.
I think it's this.
I honestly
the
don't
infrastructure
know.
and scale, and you're right. Those numbers are very appealing because I think it's like you said, as a race to the bottom. I heard that twice yesterday, so I'm going to repeat it. But there's a lot of distribution companies that are struggling to stand out because they all do the same thing, like essentially. So like, what are the things? Like, are you TuneCore and you're focusing on like licensing and sync more than you would from a United Masters who has a whole agency with a brand side and has more label services? DistroKid, to me, without really leaning into like label services. They're really like a DIY distribution platform. You go in, I've listen, I've heard their customer service is not great, but when you have that kind of scale and those level of artists, you need to I don't know, you need to care for them in a way that they're gonna stay, not just because the price is so low or that the entry is so low. I think they probably it's like they have the pipes, they've got the infrastructure, and they have the artists on board. And I think they did an announcement, I forgot they did deals with a company that builds out, like, merch sites and then a merch
Yeah.
company. Like, they were trying to expand in other ways to give their artists access
Yeah, there's like
to
cover art.
Yeah.
I mean, I use DistroKid. I put my like random dumb music projects through it. I think I pay $25 a year or something, or maybe $80 a year because it's a label
Which
type
is
thing. And like,
ridiculously
they
low.
can't be making money off
It's
it.
like, that's
Like maybe they're making, if they have, 100 million users, maybe they're making, okay, maybe if they're making $10 a year off 100 million
they
users,
don't have
okay,
100
maybe the
million
scale
users,
is
though.
really,
What do they have? What's their It's not
no,
public because 'cause I've tried to look before.
yeah, they don't. Yeah, they currently don't have
They
100 million
probably have,
users. Yeah, I don't,
I would say between, like, 2 and
several
3 million
million.
artists on platform.
Oh, okay, well, yeah, I don't know.
So,
We'll probably learn more when the sales see what happens.
yeah.
But it's also interesting. One of the reasons why the independent space and the long tail distribution space is so big is that this next figure, 1.34 billion. I am going to start a new trend in music, and we are starting it right now.
And
I'm calling them the big four of indie financed companies.
Hmm.
These are
Like Beat Bread?
companies where you can get, yes, that's one. Also, the fund that I'm part of, Mindset Music, is an investor in
Ah,
Beatbread. So Duetti, Beatbread, Pipeline, and Stem.
mhm.
I'm calling those the big four. I think we might have to tweak that a little bit because Stem, they don't. They're actually a
Yeah, I was
distribution
gonna
company
say,
that's
yeah.
owned by Concord
Mhm.
now, but they do have a lot of finance. They built on this other ancillary thing where they provide financing. I got to look into that more. They might not fit in
Okay.
this category, but these four are places, if you're an artist, you can get capitalized without signing a label deal, signing a pub deal, licensing, or signing away master rights. And it's great because up until a few years ago, the only way an artist could get money was like to go to a label. Like banks didn't want to have anything to do with music. Like you go into a bank and you're like, I want a loan. Like, what are you going to put up for collateral? Well, I'm going to put my business, or I'm going to put up my equity, or I'm going to put up like this other stuff or my labor. And banks like, okay, that has been a thing for thousands of years. You couldn't walk into a bank and say, what's your equity? My artist
Yep,
career, my
right,
royalties,
exactly.
my
Or like, my
touring revenue. Like,
publishing. They're like,
banks
I
were
don't care.
like, they were like, what the, like, we don't get this. We don't know how to assess this risk. So they didn't go near it. And the music industry wasn't big enough that it was worth for banks to get into the sector. Well, that changed. And with places like Hi-Fi, which was then acquired by Block for first doing it. And now we have Sound Royalties, who also does a similar kind of thing. But these four companies I mentioned actually went out to the private markets and the financial markets and raised capital for the express purpose, these war chests, or the express purpose of just deploying to the independent music sector for scaling their careers without having to give up equity. So I think that's super cool. And that's just really good for our independent
It
music.
is. And do you think that the kind of like the popularity of catalog sales and valuations of music have helped in that area with banks?
Yeah, absolutely. Because now it's like a tangible,
Right.
and now a lot of them are in that
Yeah.
business. Now there's like a tangible market for music
Yeah.
rights. And when something increases low double digits year over year, like music has since 2014, that's like the finance bros can like see that on a graph and be like, oh, like I can invest in this random security, or I can invest in precious metals in the Far East, or I can invest in music. They're all growing 10% year over year. It's like a stable growth curve. Now these finance bros get in a little trouble because like they don't really understand
I do
music.
not
And I think it's so
love it.
funny because now that I'm in this like investing world with Mindset, and I like am in this whole other world, and I'm talking to these other music investors, and like what they talk about is like the language they use, and they just don't get it. It's so
Agreed.
funny. They use things like someone was like, "Oh yeah, they're the participation layer," and I'm like,
Who?
"What?
What?
What does that mean?"
They also
Yeah,
look at, like,
and like
AI as such a threat because they're like, "Oh, like, this growth and these companies" it's all very, like, on the page, and I have to, like I've had a few conversations too where I remind them, like, "This is a creative industry, too. You have to look at the generation that they're catering to. Is it being adopted?" It's not just, like, the influx of money, too, that is coming into these AI companies. Like, there's a large investment in this space, so you assume that the output is going to be larger, and it's not, in my opinion.
yeah, it's not. But so it's really funny because they had the Billboard Finance 50, and it's like the people involved in financing the music industry now, like virtually none of them come
Is
from music, and certainly none of them are
Yep.
artists. It's a lot of people from banking and finance who like then pivoted to music because now it's an
Mhm.
attractive
Yep.
investment space, which I
It's
think is
funny.
like,
I'm like, "What? Put your vest on
yeah,
and go back to your
funny. I
building."
mean, it's
Yeah.
not. The amount of people have been like, "Oh, do you have a vest now?" And I'm like,
Sure
"Sure
don't have a
don't.
fleece vest or a slightly puffy
Sure don't."
vest. Yep. That should be the first
Mm-mm.
thing we do for Lone Wolves is, like, a vest with the logo on it. I'm
Don't even
kidding.
tease me
I
on the
know, we're not gonna
merch.
talk about it yet.
I wanna get the
We're
merch.
there. We've got time.
All right. Okay. I will follow your
Okay,
lead on
thank
that one.
you.
You have any other numbers?
Not off the top of my head. I feel like this is a good, it's a good point for us to start because 'cause I'd be curious to have this conversation again in 3 months and reference those numbers, especially around, like, the percentage of tracks that are Gen AI. Be super interesting to see, like, the progress that we're gonna be
Yeah.
making in short amount of time.
Yeah, and, just this just in, I mean, Apple Music is now asking uploads on their music service to be
I
tagged
think
AI.
Spotify's doing that
Now,
too, right?
it's
In their streaming 2.0?
that's rumored probably, and the EU AI Act is pretty much mandating stuff like that starting next year. But it's all like self-reporting.
Right, right.
So, like,
They're like, "No."
who's gonna say it's AI when it like, I don't know. I'm skeptical. It's a good first step, and this isn't where it's gonna stop or
Mhm.
end, but it's a good first step, but it's like, I don't think this is super dramatic, but
We will see. It's all the buzz.
we'll see. Well, don't forget to like, subscribe.
You hit us. We didn't even do our general intros.
Anything else?
Lauren Blitzer-Wright, Drew Thurlow, we're hosts of this amazing podcast. We
Oh,
didn't do,
yeah.
like
I just assume at
at this
this
yeah,
point,
exactly. Let's just throw that on.
the our fans know us. Our fans know us.
It's
It's
true.
fine. Didn't need that. And we'll
Sounds
see you
good.
next week or whenever we do this again.